to Monday. This is First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Good weekend, gentlemen.
Great weekend. Great weekend. Great suit, Jenna.
Thank you very much.
Looks amazing.
Thank you.
Cris damn near broke 80 on the golf course, living his best life.
I'm back golfing and everything.
Yeah.
Things are good.
Absolutely.
Feel strong. Well, we got a jammed show for you today. A fun one,
black.
too.
Got a black eye.
Talk about that some more as we proceed across the next 3 hours.
Old Wonder Bread trying to be wheat bread. You know,
We have 76ers star Tobias Harris will be here in studio, fresh off a new $180 million deal.
No rye.
Vikings tight end Kyle Rudolph will join us live. Lots to talk about from training camp. We'll ask him about Kirk Cousins. But we're going to start this morning with the Dallas Cowboys. To show or not to show, that was the question over the weekend regarding Ezekiel Elliott. Turned out not to show. Cowboys kicked off training camp without Zeke in attendance. The team reportedly proposed an extension, but Zeke has yet to counter. That being said, without Zeke there, all eyes are on his quarterback, Dak Prescott. Dak's got high hopes in this, his 4th season as the quarterback. The Cowboys talked about improving after last season's playoff run.
Each and every year you have confidence. You say this is the year. You say we've got a great team, but you look around this team we have, this roster that we have, the talent, the leaders that we have. It's to win, and it's to win everything. And we've got the people to do it, so it's got to just come in and stay focused and make sure that we're holding each other to those expectations.
The intangibles that he has as a leader, as a guy, I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Everybody respects him. They want to play for him. They listen to him. They believe in him. And then as a player, you know, his confidence in this system and all the little things that he's working on to improve his game, you know, I expect an incredible year for him. He is the leader of this football team.
All right, CC, we talk about how important Dak Prescott is for this Dallas Cowboys team, especially with a team as talented as they are this year if Ezekiel Elliott is all signed up. But for Dak specifically, what does he have to do to take that next step?
In certain situations, you have to be able to go to a game plan that is, they've eliminated our running game. They're better at that than what we are. And you can give the ball to the quarterback and say he can win the game for us. Or say, for instance, if they end up going against the #1 defense, rush defense. In New England, if they go against the #1 rush defense, like the Minnesota Vikings a couple times, when they do that, they throw the ball 45 times. From a game plan, going into it, what are our strengths versus their strengths, and doing what we want to do. Dallas needs to be able to throw the football when they want to and run it when they want to. Right now, they can only run the football. And for Dak to take those next steps as a quarterback, he needs to be more efficient as a passer. I'm talking about a dominant passer, where in games you say, okay, Dak took over that half. The Cowboys don't win if he's not efficient throwing the ball. But to me, it goes back to a lot of the simple things, his fundamentals. We talk about Cam Newton. What's Cam Newton doing this year with Norv Turner, Eric Turner, the coaches there? He's working on his footwork. And that's what John Kitna has Dak doing. Concentrate on his footwork. A lot of young quarterbacks get caught up into the numbers, what's your quarterback rating, all these things. But what about your footwork? What about the fundamentals? And once you can become consistent in those things, which Dak has not been consistent, and for the average football fan, they're not going to see that. But you can see the concentration this offseason with the staff there has been hone on those fundamentals, because sometimes Dak looks great. If the pocket's clean, he has room to be able to step into his throws, but he doesn't have the biggest arm in the NFL. He's not the most accurate, so he's really got to be tight on his fundamentals for him to be efficient and for him to keep getting better as a quarterback.
And fortunately for us, we have a template for Dak's best success and the Cowboys' best success, and that's his rookie season. And we now, you can say, okay, well, his rookie season, he had Cole Beasley and Des Bryant. Well, now he's got Randall Cobb and Amari Cooper, 2 guys that are as good, in fact, better than each of those players were at that point in their career. The offensive line is the same. It's the same running back. It's as good, if not a better defense.
Same coach.
Absolutely. Yep. So what was the big difference between 2016 and last year? Sacks and turnovers. Last year, Dak turned the ball over way more in just the first 8 games of the season than he did the entirety of the 2018 season. That likely comes down to, in part, fundamentals, what you're talking about, forcing the ball in. And the sack numbers were off the charts. Dak's rookie year, he was sacked the 23rd most of any quarterback in the NFL. His second year, he was middle of the pack, 14th. Last year, it was second most, 56 sacks. For comparison's sake, he was sacked 57 times his first 2 years combined. So was that the loss of Travis Frederick? Was that Tyron Smith not being as good? Was that Dak holding on to the ball too long? Most likely a combination of all of them. But we know that when Dak plays a clean game, this Cowboys team is extraordinary. Since he came into the league, if he doesn't turn the ball over, they are 24-3. 24-3 if he plays a clean game, not if he throws 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I agree with you that one of the next steps for him is being, especially if he's going to be paid like he wants to be paid, going to be able to take over games. But in the meantime, just don't lose the game for your team. And that does involve the team protecting him more and the team as a whole becoming much better in the red zone where they were dreadful last year.
You mentioned footwork. John Kitna has said the one thing he is working on with Dak Prescott this offseason, this training camp, is going to be his footwork to make him more comfortable there in the pocket. But something Jason Witten said right there, he said he's as confident as I ever remember him being. How important, when you talk about the fundamentals, is confidence, is having that team know that Dak Prescott may not be the most efficient passer or may not be the best runner, but he is the most confident guy in that team when they all take the field.
There's a difference in what people say and what people can do. Because Russell Wilson, because I believe he's the perfect comparison for who Dak wants to evolve as a quarterback. He's on a team that's got a good defense, dominant running game. Nick always complains they shouldn't have that type of game plan with Russell Wilson. Well, that's a different argument. But Dak, if he was watching someone, he would watch Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson, he can take over games. Even though sometimes the coaching staff, they're like, no, we're going to run the ball. Russell can throw the football, his fundamentals, his arm strength. And Dak is not blessed with top 10 arm strength. We have the best throwers in the NFL in the history that we've had. We have more guys that can throw the ball. Nick, his list, to get in that top 10 list as a quarterback, it's really tough. The quarterbacks that he doesn't have in there, they're really good quarterbacks. So for me, when you don't have some of the talent that other guys have, you have to be so good on your fundamentals. You have to be so good on your film study. You can't be out there guessing. So those things, Witten is there saying all the right things because he's a leader. Dak's not more talented than he was. To me, Russell Wilson has confidence. Dak has confidence in the media. But once the game starts, the numbers don't say that. When he gets into the red zone, they run the ball all the way down to the red zone. Then they get down there. They can't throw the ball in. They pack it against Zeke, take him out of it. Dak can't get points on the board. So there's one thing to be, oh, yeah, he's confident. The Dak I see in the game still does not have the confidence of the elite throwers. And that's when you have success in the game. I'm talking about in-game confidence. Forget all that chalkboard BS, oh, you're trying to make people feel good. What do you do in the game? And Dak is not a great quarterback yet. So regardless of what Witten is saying, and I'll take half the stuff he said, I'll take it as truth. I know he's trying to be a leader. He's trying to make a positive contribution to that team. But Dak is not as talented. He's not as good a thrower as we have in the league. So, no, I understand he's confident, but he's not Russell Wilson. Where they can run the ball 40 times, in those 25 throws, Russell Wilson is going to carve you apart. That's what I would like to see, that type of confidence.
And nothing helps a quarterback's confidence more than when you get in the scoring zone, when you get inside the 20, much less inside the 10, to get 7 instead of 3. And that's where Dallas was dreadful last year. There are only 4 teams in the league, 3 teams in the league actually, kicked more short field goals, which means they were kicking field goals from the red zone. They were 26th in the league in touchdown percentage in the red zone. The 6 teams behind them, all of them were bad except for one. It's Miami, the Giants, the Texans, the Jets, the Jags, and the Niners. Like, you can't be a really good team in kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. So that is partially game plan. That is partially execution. It's the whole thing. But if the Cowboys change nothing other than go from 26th in the league in red zone touchdown percentage back into the top 6 like they were in 2016, that's worth 2 more wins by itself.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
That's a huge difference. So I would start there and then expand from there, because that should be the easiest thing to fix.
All right, we're going to talk much more about this. Eric Mangini is going to be joining us first time this season. We'll also discuss the latest with Ezekiel Elliott. Coming up, why is this season a unique challenge for Tom Brady? We're not just talking about his age. That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on Sirius XM. We're back right after this. Got a fun show for you today. At 7:30 this morning, Tobias Harris will join us to talk about the 76ers title chances. That'll be a great conversation. Then at 7:45, Kyle Rudolph will join us live from Vikings camp.
Oh, I should be able to get an injury update on young Milk there at training camp. He was in the training room yesterday.
People don't know who that is. Chris's stepson was working for the Vikings. Minor injury.
Oh, he got hit by a car yesterday.
Hit by a car.
He's okay. He's all right. We'll talk about
Well,
that.
that's why it's funny. It wouldn't be funny if it
That's
wasn't
my
okay.
wife's son.
Ooh, we'll talk some Tom Brady in a second. But first, you see this? Sox, Yankees, Jackie Bradley Jr. covering a whole hell of a lot of ground to make this running catch.
Tremendous 4 days there in Red Sox land.
Yeah.
Jackie
You're a
Bradley, he's
Sox
one of the
fan.
best in the business. Covers a lot of ground, Nick. Tremendous defensive outfielder.
Yanks did avoid the sweep there.
Yep.
Good for them. More baseball. Detroit,
This
Seattle.
was unbelievable.
J.C. Crawford, an amazing stop, makes an incredible off-balance throw.
How's he throw it?
Well, this is the thing. He's already got the scouting report. He knows he's got a runner. So he knows he don't have much time. Once he gloves it, watch how quick he gets it over there.
I mean, he's falling backwards. That is
Amazing.
Spectacular, that play. That might be, honest to God, the play of the year so far. He's
Not a
falling
bad grab at
backwards,
first either.
nails him, got a guy
AAU
flying.
oops.
Oh, my.
Dior Johnson between the legs before throwing the alley-oop to Devontae Cobbs. The dunk gets a LeBron over-the-top reaction.
Gonna get teed up, man.
That's a
Running out on the court, losing his sneaker.
it's almost embarrassing.
Tournament out in Vegas, I believe. This is a hell of a play by the
My thing is, the only thing I don't like is, LeBron, you too old to be wearing mismatched shoes. Oh, the shoe fell off.
It fell off.
shoe
Oh,
fell off.
It looked like he had on the purple
Look,
one.
LeBron's son, Bronny,
Oh,
playing.
come on, man.
So, you know, LeBron has to join the layup line, showing off a little. Of course he does.
That heads up over the rim,
Whatever,
see?
Dad. So embarrassing.
Little soon-to-be 35-year-old LeBron reminding folks, all these folks saying, is he even a top 5
I just
guy?
know at that age, there used to be some cute young girls that I used to be trying to impress at the gym. 14, 15, very impressionable age.
And what happens when your dad
I
says?
need you in the car. Not in the
Station
gym. I
wagon
need you
waiting
in the
for
car.
me. Moving on to the Patriots now. They're coming off Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's 6th Super Bowl win. And while this team seemingly feeds off of the concept of next man up, they may be running out of men this year. New left tackle, no Rob Gronkowski, and Brady entering the season at age 42. Brady says this year presents a unique challenge.
Yeah, it's always challenging when you have significant turnover. And I think I always say it's like climbing a mountain, you know, and every time you climb the mountain, the next year you start right at the bottom, right with everyone else. And you have a new group of people, you have a new group of climbers. You got different tools you can use. And everyone starts at the same place. And you just gotta, there's no way to do it other than just start working your way up. And, you know, that's what we're doing now. You can't get to the top in 2 days. It's gonna take a long, it's a long year, it's a long grind. And everyone's gonna, the guys who make the team, they'll have earned it. They'll put us in our best position to be the best team could be.
All right, CC, Tom Brady's got a lot of things working, you'd say, against him. The roster, you got age, but of everything out there, what's the biggest challenge you think he's facing this season?
I think to try to keep everything fresh in his mind, that as if he didn't learn it. When you've been to 19 training camps, when you've been with Bill Belichick, you've heard every pregame speech, you've heard all the prep. It's hard to keep that fresh in your mind. You're talking about the turnover because people need to see Tom Brady reacting the way he would have reacted when he was younger because they're not used to being around the Patriots. So I could see the challenge of Tom saying, hey, it's like climbing up this mountain, but it's the same mountain. And when you get to certain junctures, it's boring. How do I make that exciting? How can I make it exciting for the guys around me that they aren't looking at me saying, you know something, Tom's not like he used to be. So it's always a challenge to play football at a high level. And as you get older, like what's going to motivate him? He's already the greatest quarterback that's ever played. He's one of the greatest football players that's ever played. So trying to find motivation every single day, it's difficult. You have to lie to yourself. You have to try to create concepts. You have to listen to people like us, more so Nick, because Tom knows I'm a TB12 guy. And you have to get these little clips that motivates you on a daily basis to make sure that you stay fresh, to make sure that you don't get bored. You saw him and Belichick going at it a little bit this weekend, a little simple drill. But those are the types of things that keep you right on the edge, keep you right on your game, and keep you because If I've been to this juncture of the mountain 20 straight times, how can I have the same enthusiasm for someone who's never been up here? But how do I trick him into believing? Man, I'm watching all this film. I'm reading all these coverages. I'm reading all these fronts. And that is hard to impossible to do. As you get older, it's not the games. It's the meetings and the practices you get tired of. You get tired of hearing the same stuff. Oh, they're in a 4-3 cover too. Well, what else are they going to be in that front? So somehow you have to play a trick on your mind to keep everything fresh so that every day that you can be on this long adventure with your teammates. And some days, oh, you're not halfway up the mountain. Oh, you're not 3/4 way up the mountain. And you're going every step along with them. It is a struggle even for the greatest of them.
I hate to put it right back to you, but I want to follow up on that, and it's something that I can't answer. So how do you think he does it? As a guy that played 16 years, this is Brady's 20th, how do you think he stays motivated? We know what motivates a lot of guys late. They are trying to get that first championship. They are trying to squeeze out every last dollar. Brady's got all the championships, all the money, already has passed Montana and Elway and whomever else was on the list. So how do you think he stays motivated when you're saying that's the biggest struggle?
I think there's a couple things. I think Tom wants to play until he's 45. I think that Tom wants to be beyond it's Bill Belichick getting all the credit. I think Tom, there's people with 6 rings. All right, Tom wants to have more rings than anybody. Forget quarterbacks, forget about all that. Tom wants to have 7, 8 championship rings. I believe those types of things, and I believe because early in his career he wasn't an accomplished passer, now later in his career he really gets a thrill out of, you know something? I got more velocity on the ball now than I did 15 years ago. So those things right there, I think, keep Tom Brady focused on what he's trying to accomplish.
Earlier this week, Nick, you and I had a conversation in the morning meeting, and you said, oh, that's right, I forgot because I brought up the football almanac. And you said, I have to read that again. And I thought to myself, I don't know, besides maybe you, Chris, anyone that knows more about football than you, Nick, but you wanted to do it. You actually enjoy doing that. You like getting better, even though for the most part you know the information, but the numbers change.
I got a lot still to prove.
Okay, but I think there's a part of him that enjoys it. I think that the part of him that actually really loves doing this, doesn't want to do anything else, and all of that is sort of built into what he does every day. It's less of a grind, and it's more of, well, I feed off of this because I know that's what makes me better.
Well, I believe, and I wholeheartedly believe that there's nothing Tom Brady loves more in the world than those 16 to 20 Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, those 16 to 20 games a year. And we hear that from older athletes all the time. I'd play for free, you got to pay me to practice. What Chris is talking about is this part of the year that nobody enjoys, particularly a guy like Brady that is probably, of everyone on the team, getting the least out of it. He might be getting the same out of the actual reps in practice, but the least out of the meetings, the least out of the instruction, because he has been there almost as long as Belichick, and he's been there through multiple systems, through all these different teammates. And so the reason I wanted to focus on it is because that, as much as anything, is part of his legacy of unquestioned greatness, is that he finds a new motivation, that he finds a new mountain to climb, even if it is the same damn mountain, because he's had nothing left to prove for 5 years. And he just keeps finding a new reason to show up as motivated to decide during that drill. See, you know what? I'm annoyed that the defense isn't respecting the play action because they know it's a pass. I'm going to call a run just because I can. Like, I find that fascinating.
Let me tell you something. Tom Brady hates training camp. I went to play 16 years, went to 14 training camp. Training camp sucks. It sucks. It hurts. It's something that you understand I must do on the way to this. So Tom Brady's playing a trick on his mind like any person that does something for a long time. He makes it more important every single day. But when Tom Brady's running out there to the field, there's a certain amount of kid-like joy, but there's just a certain amount of professionalism that takes over. I must do this. This is a huge part of being a great player, and he's mastered that. The greatest master the ugly parts of their profession, and it becomes just something else that they must do. But there's no way Tom Brady enjoys training camp. That's just a flat-out lie. It's impossible.
I think, to your point, I think Michael Strahan once said if it wasn't for training camp, if we could just skip it, I probably would have played an extra couple seasons. I'm sure a lot of guys playing a long time would say the same thing. All right, let's take a break. Coming up, could Ezekiel Elliott's holdout drag into the regular season? That's next on First Things First. We got a great heavyweight battle for you coming up on Saturday as Brooklyn's unbeaten Adam Kovnatski takes on Cris Arreola. Saturday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox.
I know you can't wait for that fight, Jenna.
Sports F. I don't know what you mean. We are now going viral here on First Things First.
This is great.
Cleveland Indians pitcher Trevor Bauer, one of the most sought-after pitchers in the MLB trade market right now. However, yesterday he got lit up and was pulled after allowing 8 runs in 4 innings. And when Terry Francona came to the mound to pull him, Bauer showed just a little bit of emotion.
Watch this. He turns and fires it. Thankfully, he threw it against the board, so there was nobody in the seats there to get hit with it. But you don't do that when your manager's coming out. It's disrespectful. So Francona's going, what the heck was that? And Bauer goes, my bad, Skip, I'm sorry. And he goes, go grab some pine. I'm going to see you in a little bit. And so he's in the principal's office right now, and then let them deal with it. But the Royals, they frustrated him. They got some big hits on some of his best pitches, and so he's got to go.
Bauer's a crazy guy. I mean, prior to this, we knew Bauer was a little bit of a crazy guy. Yankees may be considering trading for him, especially now since Stroman went to the Mets, oddly enough. But this is, I know it's on the takeaway, that's a hell of a throw, man. That thing went about 380 feet in the air that he threw it, clearing the center field wall.
Oh, yeah. I was glad that Terry Francona checked him, because I know Terry from our days over at another network and everything. That's the kind of person he is. Because he said, what the hell? What was that? Now, go sit over there on the bench. See, I like that aspect, because very few times, especially at that level, are you going to see the manager respond like that way.
And I've never seen a pitcher do that in response. Oh, you're going to take the ball out of my hands? Well, go get it. He was mad, man. It also wasn't his fault. Like, he had a center fielder drop a fly ball. He had an error on the thing. He was some bad luck.
I like that he had some pie right in the middle of the game. It's time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. Some terrible news for the Cincinnati Bengals. A.J. Green was carted off the field in training camp. He's out 6 to 8 weeks with a torn ligament in his ankle, making him unlikely to be on the field for Week 1 for Cincinnati. See your reaction to the news?
This is bad news. This is one of the classiest wide receivers we've seen in the NFL in the last 20 years. A.J. Green, it happens fast. Last year got injured. Now he gets injured to start the season. Is A.J. Green, after starting out a career, like one of only a handful of wide receivers where he was dominant those first 7 years? Unfortunate for the Bengals and their new head coach. They don't have one of the most consistent wide receivers, one of the best deep threats that we have in the NFL available.
Devastating for Andy Dalton's chances to start the year well in what I think is a very difficult division. You have the Browns, who should be really good. The Ravens, who won it last year, only got better with the addition of Earl Thomas and Lamar being a year older. And the Steelers, we know that they'll be at least 500, or they are every year.
Facing those 3 defenses twice without 8. Oh.
Man, and so, I mean, A.J. Green has kept that offense afloat despite what I would consider mediocre quarterbacking. This is a devastating loss for them early on.
Some bad news for the New York Giants. Golden Tate suspended for 4 games after testing positive for using a fertility drug. They've also already lost Corey Coleman for the season to a torn ACL. Sterling Shepard has a fractured finger, and there is no more Odell Beckham Jr. Boy, if only the Giants did have another top receiver to rely on. Nick, what do you make of what's going on with the Giants?
I mean, this is bad luck, bad fortune, bad decisions, all hitting the same position on the team, and the position that's going to be spotlighted because they traded away the best receiver, the most talented receiver in the history of their franchise. Evidently Golden Tate knew this was coming, He told the Giants about it, but not until after he had signed the 4-year deal with them. So there are little question marks there. But it's tough, man. They got no one to throw to except for our friend Evan Ingram for the first month of the season.
I think there's been other people in the league that have struggled with the same situation. But you are responsible, Jenna, for everything that goes into your body. 100%. They got doctors that will test it, and you got years of examples of what to do and what not to do. I understand trying to grow a family. It's one of God's commandments. But I'm just going to tell God, you have to wait till I get out the league. All right? I can't have no babies right now. That's a lot of money.
I agree with the first part.
That's a lot of money for
what
bad kids. It's a lot of money to bring a bad
kid's just going to cost you more money.
No doubt.
Good news for Bobby Wagner. He signed a 3-year, $54 million extension with the Seahawks this weekend, worth over $40 million guaranteed. This makes him the highest-paid inside linebacker in football. See, put into perspective just how good Wagner is.
He is the quarterback. He's Russell Wilson of their defense. He's been underrated for a long time. He's been the best defender on that team for a long time. People talk about Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor. Yep. They always talk about the secondary. Bobby Wagner never got enough credit. You are not running the ball against Seattle. You are not throwing the short passing game. Why? Because of Bobby Wagner. He deserved this money, the $40 million guaranteed, because we've seen Earl leave without getting paid. Sherm leaving without getting paid. Bobby stayed and got paid. Good for him.
And as they do in Seattle, very smartly done by John Schneider, the GM, in that he becomes the highest paid ever at his spot, but it's a short-term deal. He will be worth this money certainly over the next 2 years, which is really all you're committed to him on. And then if he continues at this level, he'll be up for another deal, so it works for both parties. I think more teams should emulate that. Pay the guy what he wants, but do it on a short-term basis.
There you go, Nick. Tell the teams what to do.
With a high percentage guarantee.
I'll tell the players what to do. You tell the teams how to run.
Exactly right. Now, there we go. There we go. That'll work for this football
Speaking of
season.
two parties who both need a little advice here, finishing up with Ezekiel Elliott. He didn't show up to camp on Friday and continued to hold out throughout the weekend. According to reports, he has yet to counter the Cowboys' extension offer. Could be a long battle between the two sides. CC, is Zeke handling this the right way?
Well, he only had two choices, and that's either to hold out at the beginning or tell them, I need a new deal, show up to camp, but I'm not going to be here during the regular season. His ability to not be there, it puts instant pressure, regardless of what Jerry, Steven, anybody else says, because there's going to be some money passed out in Dallas this summer, and there's going to be a lot of it. And if I'm Zeke, like I said, you are in business for yourself. On your check, it does not say, Amari Cooper's my teammate. I got good offensive linemen. It says the Dallas Cowboys pay to the order of Ezekiel Elliott. That's the way the checks come. They don't come to, you got to split them up. No. Man, they got a little sliver of pie, and I'm making sure that I get a piece of that because I'm getting ready to touch the ball 450 times. This team revolves around me more so than any person. He is more important than the head coach. He's more important than the quarterback, and he's the best player on the team. And I know guys in the locker room, what do they ultimately respect? When you work hard and you perform and you get paid for it. I think that locker room will respect Zeke getting paid because he has carried that team for 3 years.
Well, and I went back and read the comments from Stephen Jones this past May. And Stephen Jones said two things, both of which are probably getting him in a little bit of trouble now. We've talked about the one that he said, which is we know we have to pay Zeke, but we've got a couple years to get that done. I'm sure Zeke heard that and was like, no. You got a few months to get that done. But the other thing he said in that same interview that I had forgotten until I read it this morning is, well, obviously the contract will start at Gurley and go from there. Well, Todd Gurley got 4 years, $58 million with $45 million guaranteed. He said to the whole world, it will start there and go from there. So I don't know, because it was reported this weekend the Cowboys made an offer to Ezekiel Elliott, and as of we sit here today, it has not yet been responded to. That logic tells me that means it was an offer they looked at and said, man, this isn't even worth responding to. Pass this back. So are they not starting at Todd Gurley and going from there? Are they presenting him as I think would be reasonable for an initial offer? Less than highest paid history of the league at your spot, which maybe would be a credible offer if you'd have just kept your mouth shut.
Right.
But they talked about paying Dak. They talked about paying Amari. They talked about paying Zeke as the highest paid ever, just that he's going to have to wait. And so is he handling this the right way? If he has the stomach for it, if he is truly willing to go to the wall on this, meaning not just miss August, but go into September, that opening game against the Giants and potentially not be there, if he's got the stomach for it, then yeah, because then I think the leverage will shift to him because the Cowboys desperately need him. But where he wouldn't be handling this right is if it's only a half measure. Is if he's going to sit out, and then show up still without getting paid and having lost his leverage. But it does not seem like that is, at least as we sit here today, his plan of action.
You think it's on the board that Ezekiel Elliott would be willing to miss games over the contract? Do you think it can get that far, or do you think these two, or will the Cowboys not let it get that far?
Well, I think there's some technicalities as far as the CBA, what he can do, what he can't do, what's best. Like, because there are some restrictions. If you are better off not coming than trying to come and then leave. We saw Julio Jones last year. He ended up showing up. Arthur Blank made him a promise. Julio still hadn't got paid yet, and we're another year removed. But Arthur Blank said that he's going to pay him. Is Zeke willing to go on a handshake agreement with Jerry Jones? I don't think so. Playing running back, I wouldn't do it. So I do believe that Zeke would not show up and be playing around, messing around. I believe he's serious because he's thought about this. This is not something he just woke up and said, I'm not going to show up to Dallas Cowboys. He knows how important he is, and he knows the message he sends right now is very important. I think Zeke will be there week number 1. I believe they'll come to some type of compromise.
And he also knows that Dallas did not plan for this, meaning here's the running backs on the roster. Darius Jackson's the only one who has any NFL touches. He has 6 carries in his career. And then it's 2 rookies, a 4th-round pick, Tony Pollard, and a 7th-round pick, Mike Weber Jr. They don't have, not that there's any great replacement for Ezekiel Elliott, but they don't have C.J. Anderson sitting there behind Todd Gurley.
Or James Conner, like what we saw last year in Pittsburgh, where you had Roethlisberger say, okay, well, we'll do with what we have. They really don't have the same situation.
There's certainly no one that is even close to proven, and Zeke knows, and his representation knows how critical he is and how critical this season is for the Cowboys as far as having this young core together.
All right, let's move on to the L.A. Rams now. Coming off a trip to the Super Bowl, but also coming off a trip home from the Super Bowl empty-handed. Rams hoping to avoid the always dreaded Super Bowl hangover. A big factor there, the health of running back Todd Gurley. A season after getting a massive contract extension, there are still questions about what he can do and how well he can do it with his arthritic knee. Gurley says he's done talking about the knee.
I gotta stop putting this bad energy in my knee, man. Just let it be.
But are you eager to just kind of show everyone, that you're fine and you're the same guy that you've been?
No, I'm not eager to do anything. I don't have to prove anything to nobody. I've been doing this for years now, so it's like it's the same stuff every year.
All right, Nick, does Gurley have to be in top form for the Rams to have any success this year?
Well, to have any success, maybe not, but to have a great year, to have anything close to what they were last year, which was 13-3 and in the Super Bowl, absolutely. He's the best player on their offense. He is the part of their offense that defenses have to account for each and every snap. That, to me, opens everything up for their quarterback. The Rams have told us, hey, man, Todd Gurley at full strength was worthy getting paid with 2 years left on his deal. They got their quarterback who's got 2 years left on his deal. They haven't paid him, and they're not going to pay him this year. They've made that clear. They're going to wait until they see another year from him. So, to me, the Rams have told everyone who they thought was the most important player. And, I mean, the proof, they lost only 4 times last year. The 4 games they lost, Todd Gurley had 68, 28, 48, and 35 yards rushing. Like, what do all those have in common? Well below what his average over the last few years has been. So, to me, we just talked about the Cowboys. We're talking about the Rams. These might be the only 2 teams in the league where their most important player on their offense is the running back. But I do believe that is the case with the Rams.
And it really hurts them because how the offense is designed. It's not a normal offense. They run a certain scheme. Now, they're running plays. They look like other teams. But there is no team that matches their running game with their passing game like the Rams. It's one of the, what I would call genius things that the young genius has done is he makes almost all the plays look alike. Last year, as far as play action dropbacks, Jared Goff led the NFL with 220 play action. So that's every time he's putting the ball into Todd Gurley or a running back, that simulated action, what it does to the defense. And how significant is it? When he drops straight back, his passing rating drops 20 points. So now you're talking about it makes my quarterback better. This is the way the offenses run, and this is the way that the defenses, they don't know what we're doing. It's one of one. You got 32 offense in the league. No one runs their offense like the Rams run their offense, and that is predicating on slamming the ball up in there with a running back. His skill to be able to run in the open field, his blazing speed that he has, catching the ball out of the backfield, his dual threat. He's one of the best dual threats we've had since Marshall Faulk. And when he's not 100%, when you don't have those things, the offense doesn't look the same. Their three-receiver offense is not run the same. We saw that last year when Cooper Kupp got hurt. They couldn't do the play action. Those things hampered that offense and hampered the growth of their quarterback.
Just quickly to both of you, it's not like he's coming off a specific injury that's going to heal. This is an arthritic knee, which is a degenerative issue that he's going to have with that. How do you manage his playing time when he's a workhorse? You want a workhorse. He is in there, and you want him to get the brunt of that work. How do you manage that, and how does that affect golf?
And he's not the only player playing with the arthritic knee. The coaches have to be able to manage it, get him through training camp as healthy as possible, try to get him through the regular season as healthy as possible. But you won't see Todd Gurley have games like Ezekiel Elliott, L. Bell, where he has 26 carries, 30 carries in a game where they try to grind it out. The maintenance program from Todd Gurley, it's real. For that contract, for them to be able to get their money, they got to be able to keep him healthy. I don't think it's possible. I'm not trying to put no bad juju into his knee. His knee's been bad for a number of years. He said that. But ultimately, though, arthritic knee, it becomes bone on bone. It becomes how much pain can he tolerate? And last year, he couldn't tolerate the pain, and it affected his performance.
And the Rams were very unique last season also in this regard. They were in 11 personnel, meaning 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receiver, an extraordinary percentage of the time. I think it was over 94% of the time. So they had the same people on the field almost every play. It looked fancy because of pre-snap motion and because of what Cris is talking about is if you were to be watching from the All-22 on film, a second into a play, but so many of them look the exact same, and then it throws the defense off because, and then is Gurley getting it? Is he not? Is it play action? Is it a quick slant? Whatever it is. So much of that becomes easier to defend if the running back there is just a guy as opposed to a star. And unlike the Cowboys, by the way, the Rams are telling us they're worried about this. They drafted Malcolm Brown, they brought back Malcolm Brown, they drafted Darrell Henderson, who averaged almost 10 yards per touch last year in college. Like, they know they might not be able to rely on Todd Gurley this year the way they have the last couple years.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, the same question we've been asking for the last 5 years. Will age finally catch up to one Tom Brady? That's ahead on First Things First. We got a big show for you today. At 7:30 this morning, Tobias Harris will join us to talk about the Sixers' title chances. At 7:45, Kyle Rudolph will join us live from Vikings camp a little bit later. But the best reason to tune in is this guy right here, our favorite big-time guest, former head coach Eric Mangini. How's it going?
Good to be back.
Great to have you. We missed you all season.
They told like 8 people. Nick told 4. Jenna's got 3 other ones, and you.
Him.
Oh man, you're our favorite. They've been going through this basketball season. They were loving up on Antoine. Man, you are the best. Love you. Broussard, love you. Like.
Every time I turn the show, a little part of me dies because someone's oh, you're my favorite.
Well, resurrect yourself, my friend, because you're here right now, and we love you.
I am the favorite right now.
You are the favorite. Let's talk some Andrew Luck, favorite one, and the Indianapolis Colts. It was a nice bounce-back year for Luck last season. That after a very few frustrating years dealing with injury, returned to lead the Colts back to the playoffs last season. However, Colts might have higher aspirations than just the measly playoffs. Colts owner Jim Irsay did not hold back, selling his fans on what this team can do.
This team is one of the best teams that I've had the privilege to bring to our fans with the general manager and head coach and have a situation that honestly matches some of those days of Peyton, Edger, and Reggie, all those guys. I couldn't be more excited, Bob. I think it's really exciting. Obviously, Andrew's in that sweet spot era for him, age-wise, and there's really not a lot of weakness, here with the roster.
Coach, best team since Peyton and Edgerrin and Reggie. Is this finally the Colts year? Could it be?
They have as good a chance this year as I think anybody does, and I don't love the fact that the owner is creating these expectations. That's something that he could have done to help continue this path is lessen the expectations because they're in a good spot. They're being talked about, and justifiably so. When you look at what they did defensively, made huge strides, and then they drafted 7 guys on defense. And I think those guys are going to contribute significantly. Andrew Luck, he is a force multiplier. Andrew Luck is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You've seen the progress that he's made coming off the injury. I like where they're positioned offensively. There's 3 #1 draft picks on the offensive line. To me, they are in a great spot to make a huge jump this season. And with the salary cap room that they have and the way that they've positioned the team and built this team, they could be successful long into the future because they've taken a long-term view of building the roster.
Coach, you said a nugget there. I just don't want to pass over it. For those who watch us and everything, we become very comfortable with Coach Mangini. One of your favorite things is force multiplier. Explain that to us, what it means, especially for an NFL quarterback, and if you're going to be considered one of the best in the business, what you're expecting that guy to do.
Well, you can be a force multiplier a couple different ways. You can be a force multiplier where you make 5 guys around you better. You make the people around you better. You can be a force multiplier and that you make the people around you worse. It can go either way. But really, when you look at that quarterback position, when you insert that player, everybody around them becomes better. The receivers, Tom Brady is the classic example. Peyton Manning is another classic example of guys where it doesn't matter who plays receiver, they become better because of the way that he operates. The running back becomes better because they've got to deal with the quarterback. The offensive line becomes better because that player is in the position he's supposed to be in. He gets him to the right protection, things like that. You are someone who makes everybody around you a better player.
And I want to remind the audience about what the Colts did last year, how they got to the playoffs and ended up winning a playoff game. They were dead in the water. They were 1-5. The coach, the week before they fell to 1-5, in what a lot of people thought was a desperate move, if you remember, instead of taking the tie, which he could have against Houston, he went for it on a 4th down in his own territory because he knew they were in a spot where, man, we have to start winning games. They lost that one, then lost the following week as well. And then they won 9 of 10 to finish the year and a playoff game. So they won 10 out of their next 11 games. All of a sudden, they had a dominant defense in that stretch, aided a bit by the quarterbacks they went up against, but still a dominant defense. They were one of only 3 teams all year to not allow a 100-yard rusher. And most importantly, I think, is what you mentioned, that offensive line. They traded back from the 3rd pick to the 6th pick of that year's draft, still got their guy, Quentin Nelson. He was an instant Pro Bowl, if not all-pro caliber player. And Andrew Luck, after the first 5 games of the season, was one of the least sacked quarterbacks in all of football. Final 11 games of the year, he was sacked a total of 8 times. And that was one of your concerns, is Luck getting rid of the ball, not running into sacks himself, but also that offensive line being able to protect him. And all of a sudden, they were a dream scenario football team, which is you've got a good running game, you've got a great offensive line, an excellent defense. Those are the things you have to compete if you don't have a great quarterback. But they had all those things with a great quarterback. That's how you can win 10 of 11 games going into that playoff game against the Chiefs. I think the Colts the stock is only rising. And your point on the salary cap is another great one. A lot of people thought they have all this cap room. They'll go get Le'Veon Bell. They'll go make a flashy signing. They'll trade for Antonio or Odell. They made a few judicious signings. They bring in Justin Houston, a few other guys. But they didn't overspend. That cap room will roll over into next year, and they will be able to re-sign some of their own guys, and then maybe next year add one major impact player. But no, the Colts, under their new leadership, new head coach, they are in as good of a direction as, to me, any team in the NFL. I think you're totally right to be that high on them.
And when you can add 7 draft picks on defense, and that's another testament is the fact that they had so many draft picks going into this year, into this year's draft, and to be positioned to sign your own players. So as these young stars get in a place where they need their second contract, you don't have to necessarily move on from them, or you don't have to leverage everything and not be able to add any other pieces. They're positioned to compete this year and then should be multiple years in the future.
So now that the Colts are back in the conversation, where do they stack up against other teams in the AFC? Just to give people an idea of how high you are on them.
Well, this is the thing. I think the Colts' defense is going to be underrated. It's going to be unsung. It's going to be led by a guy, Darius Leonard, Rookie of the Year last year. Man, If you want to see a guy that's hungry, he talks about he wants to be MVP, win a Super Bowl. I like it.
All right, let's finish up with Ezekiel Elliott. He did not show up to camp on Friday, continued to hold out throughout the weekend. According to reports, he has yet to counter the Cowboys' extension offer. Could be a long battle between the two sides. Coach Mangini, is Zeke handling this the right way? Is there a right way?
Yeah, there really isn't a great way to handle a holdout. But I actually understand where he's coming from. They're talking about.
Whoa, Coach.
I know.
Hey.
Well, here, from a business perspective, you've got Dak and Amari, who are about to get paid. So he could be very easily coming back next season. And they're saying, well, look, we spent all that money on Dak and we spent all that money on Amari. We don't really have as much money for you. So by inserting himself into these two contracts, now they've got to take that pot of money and divvy it up equally or divvy it up however they see those three players. And I think that's a smart play by him, and to do it at this point with all the praise that's been heaped on him, with what he stirs the
straw that stirs the drink.
When you start praising a player like that, then you better pay him like, I mean, that's a platinum straw, or I don't even know what metal that would be.
First of all, I really want to give you a hug right now. I'm so glad this is this is what you said.
Don't do that.
Boundaries.
But I am, and while I agree with you nearly entirely, and I think the Cowboys they backed themselves into this corner. Stephen Jones talked about, and Jerry talked about paying Dak. They all talked about paying Amari. And then Stephen Jones in May said two very interesting things about paying Zeke. One was, the exact quote is, obviously, it starts at what Todd Gurley got and goes from there. Well, I mean, that's just handing not a blank check, but a 4-year, $58 million with $45 million guaranteed check and saying it starts from there. But the other thing he said was, but we've got a couple years to get this done. I'm sure Zeke heard that and said, wait, a couple years? You're talking about taking care of all these other guys. I've been the best player on your team. And while Cris is adamant, and I totally agree, that it is not Zeke's responsibility to worry about other guys getting paid, I am curious as a coach if you'd be concerned about how this could play in the locker room when Zeke, while we can argue he's been underpaid, he's paid like a top 5 pick. Dak, who's been the quarterback, who's never missed a game, never been in trouble, has been paid like a 4th-round pick, which is $1 million a year thereabouts. And Zeke almost trying to cut the line in this regard. I think it's totally justifiable on Zeke's end, but would you worry about how the locker room, most notably Dak and Amari, are going to react to Zeke not being there when they are there?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but those contracts are in the works, and his contract was not in the works. So and I'm sure he approached him and said, this is something I want to do. They said, you're probably going to have to wait, and he took a stand. And look, I get where he's coming from a business perspective. Now, I wonder if he's going to take a step back and say, okay, I was suspended for those games. I did have the other issue this offseason that didn't really go anywhere, but there's been some things along those lines, and it is early. Is he going to take some discount because of those behaviors? And typically, the answer is no to that.
How long do you think this will play out for? Do you think this would bleed into the regular season?
I don't think so. I think the Cowboys understand how important he is. I mean, Amari's great and Dak's great.
He's the focal point of this offense.
Yeah, he is the straw that stirs the drink. They were right on with saying that. So they're going to have to get him in and figure out a way to make this work.
And he's the best player on the team. This is what the players respect in the locker room. Who's the best? All right? You don't think, oh, man, did this guy get in trouble? Oh, did this guy, he get a traffic ticket? Man, we don't care. We don't care, man. Who can play the game of football? Who's going to make the Dallas Cowboys better? When you get in that locker room, that's what becomes important. All that, I was drafted in the 4th round. Well, that's your problem. That ain't no one else's problem. There's all kinds of stories. You imagine me telling Johnny Randall, hey, Johnny, you were a street free agent. You know something? Hey, buddy, that's tough luck. Man, Johnny Randall was out there getting his. I played with 7 Hall of Famers. You think we didn't have times where they was trying to get their money? You think that they didn't think that they were the best in the business? That's all a part of it. The one thing that people miss, fans, it's all the players against management. It ain't some of the players. And when management starts talking good about the players, the other players are like, okay, they didn't say that about me. Zeke should be concerned. Dak is going to get paid. That's a guarantee. Amari Cooper, because they traded for him, and the impact on Dak, he's going to get paid. That's a guarantee. So now how much of the pie do I have left? Zeke is a fool if he starts playing for the money he's playing for, where he wouldn't get any new money for 3 seasons. Man, that's a lifetime in the NFL. We saw Todd Gurley. We saw L. Bell. Look at how their fortunes have changed over the last 3 years. We want Zeke to wait 3 years till he gets paid? That's not going to happen.
Also, look what the Cowboys look like without Ezekiel Elliott. It's not like they've got really depth at that position. Talk about what would happen if he did hold out, where this team could go without him on it.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing about the conversation, because when Amari got there, the offense did get better, and it helped Dak, and Dak has done some good things. But it all centers around everybody's trying to stop Zeke. And when you're loading up the box, when everything is focused on stopping that one player, it opens up an incredible amount of things for the other guys, for the tight end, for the wide receivers. When you take him out of that mix, and now they can focus on Amari, or they can focus on dealing with Dak exclusively, then it's a much harder road to go for the offense.
I know, Coach, when we had all those effective offenses in Minnesota, and it was generated by the wide receivers. Jake Reed and myself, 1,000-yard seasons, 4 seasons in a row. Then we get Randy Moss. When the quarterback would come to negotiate, they would tell him, it's our wideouts. And our wideouts, Jake got paid, Moss got paid, and I got paid. It was about who was the absolute best. And in Dallas, Ezekiel Elliott is the best, not offensive player, he's the best football player. He's the best, and when that star goes out there, when all those players run out there, Ezekiel Elliott is the best. And that locker room, they know that. They know when he's on the team, we got a better chance. So I don't think that Zeke holding out is going to reflect on the locker room in a negative way.
And maybe most importantly, it's not just that the Cowboys know that, to Coach's point, the opposition knows it. And the opposition, every game they play against Dallas, the first thing in the meetings is how are we going to slow down 21, and they go from there. And if all of a sudden he's not out there, as we saw for 6 weeks a couple of years ago, in the first 3 games, the Cowboys went 0-3 and scored 7 points per game in that first stretch. If it becomes, Zeke's not out there, we can drop an extra man into coverage. We can focus on stopping what is a relatively pedestrian aerial attack.
Same thing they did to Jared Goff.
Yeah, then all of a sudden the offense grinds to a halt when the defense isn't focused on, because he's so good they can focus on stopping him, and he still wins a rushing title.
And look, you've got a first-time offensive coordinator. You need to help him out, and helping him out is having an elite running back in the backfield. You've got a head coach who's getting close to the end of his contract.
Yep.
There's a lot of pressure on him to perform as well. So to go into the season without your, like Cris said, the best player on your team, it's a hard thing to do, and he's really got the leverage over the Cowboys at this point.
All right, Coach, stick around. Another segment coming up. Why is this a unique challenge this coming season for Tom Brady? We'll explain next on First Things First. Back here with Coach Mangini, let's talk some Patriots. They're coming off of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's 6th Super Bowl win.
Tom Brady's at middle age.
He's middle-aged, just, like what I am. And while this team seemingly feeds, I admit I'm a strong woman, feeds off of the concept of next man up. They may be running out of next man up. New left tackle, no Rob Gronkowski, and Tom Brady entering middle age at age 42. Brady says this year presents a very unique challenge.
Yeah, it's always challenging when you have significant turnover, and I think I always say it's like climbing a mountain, and every time you climb the mountain, the next year you start right at the bottom, right with everyone else. And you have a new group of people, you have a new group of climbers. You got different tools you can use, and everyone starts at the same place. And you just there's no way to do it other than just start working your way up. And that's what we're doing now. You can't get to the top in 2 days. It's going to take a long, it's a long year, it's a long grind. And everyone's the guys who make the team, they'll have earned it. They'll put us in our best position to be the best team could be.
All right, Coach, with everything Tom Brady has working, let's call it against him, with the roster, with his age, with trying to motivate yourself for this season, what do you think his biggest challenge will be as he gets ready to start training camp again?
Well, the best thing he has going for him is his perspective, and you hear it in what he says in terms of everybody starts at the same place. You start over so many teams that win, and we talked about this when the Eagles who are in that position. They don't understand that you don't get to start where you finished and you've got to start over. And I think Tom does a great job of that, and the organization does a great job of resetting the clock. Now, to me, the biggest challenge is Belichick's role defensively. And he's had a role defensively there, but it's a little bit different this time around. I do believe he's going to have to be much more involved than he has historically. And one of the great things that Bill does is he's the head coach of the whole team. And he makes sure that things are going right in every aspect. He understands what's happening on every special team, who's part of it, same thing offensively and defensively. And he does play a role for Tom and the offense of giving a defensive perspective on what they should do offensively, and there's real value to that. Now, if his time is more committed to the defense, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that as well as he has historically done it. And I don't see someone in that building who's really going to be able to take that over right away. Now, he's got his son, Stephen Belichick, there, and at some point, maybe he's in line for that. But for this period right now, he's got a big commitment.
Well, and roster-wise, with the things you listed, they have a change at left tackle, and they have questions at the wide receiver core. Those are the headlines. That is exactly what the headlines were last season, right? Trent Brown was the questionable left tackle after Nate Solder had gone out. They had a left tackle. He then became the highest-paid left tackle ever. Last year, they had a new left tackle. He then became the highest-paid left tackle ever. You have questions there. This year, they think it'll be Isaiah Wynn, the kid they drafted in the first round last year. He got hurt. I think he tore his Achilles in the preseason last year. And the wide receiver questions this year are the same, except you don't also have Gronk to rely on. Like, it's still Julian Edelman and a bunch of guys. Now, they did draft N'Keal Harry in the first round, first-round pick. They've spent on a wide receiver in a bit of time, and so they obviously think he will be able to contribute at some point. But Cris has talked about a bunch that of all the positions in the league, wide receivers near the top of the list of most difficult to make an instant impact early on in your rookie year, especially in a system like the Patriots. So it would be foolish for me to say they can't overcome these issues when last year Brady had statistically the worst year he's had in at least 5 years, through the most picks he had thrown in almost a decade. They had questions at wide receiver all year long. They had a losing record on the road, all these red flags, and they won the damn Super Bowl. Like, they were, by the end of the year, they were right there, if not for the crazy Miami finish. They somehow end with the 1 seed last year, which would have been bananas. They still got a bye, even though they were 3-5 on the road, and they found a way to go into Kansas City and have a late fourth quarter comeback and then win that game in overtime. So I do think there are real roster questions like there were last year, and I think not having Gronk as a blocker and as a big play, big moment guy makes you worse than if he's on the team. But are they the favorites in the AFC? They're certainly right there, because at this point the history and the repeated success is unquestionable.
But last year, CC, they did it with a time of possession, defense-led team that got them through the playoffs. It wasn't like we're going to just rely on Tom Brady. Is that the way you have to look at it heading into this season now? You got to rely on that defense, rely on time of possession, and understand that Tom Brady's 42 years old. He's not going to have the same season he's had the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'm not like most people. I like their roster. Absent of their wide receiver core being weak, which has been weak for a long time, if you look at Belichick, where has he failed to develop players, and that's wide receivers. Now, he'll develop some slot receivers, put a little guy in the slot, have him run some three-way breaks and get him open, because they don't have one guy right now they can call a play for and say, my guy's better than your guy. They depend on the system. They depend on whatever type of talent they have in the system as a wide receiving core. So besides that, I like their roster. Their secondary is the best in football. Their defense will be a top 5 defense as far as yards and points scored. So, yes, I like what they're doing. They're not going to go back to 2000 when they broke all the scoring records. No, they're not going back to that. What you saw week number 15, 16, 17, and in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl is what you're getting ready to see in 2019. He's going to take advantage of that roster. He realizes he has the oldest quarterback in the league. He is not going to jeopardize that left tackle to be taken advantage of. And they do this all the time. Their best position coach, Dante Scarnecchia, will do an amazing job. How do I know that? Because I've been watching football. And there's no one as good as coaching up football players as what they do in New England. I do understand what you're saying is this staff has been stressed out by people pulling for him, part of the staff going to Miami. They will feel it this year, but them having an under-talented wide receiving core, this is not the guys they'll have in December. All right? You will see a rotation. Veteran guys getting cut, them trying to find someone, they will do patchwork to try to get some productivity out of the wide receivers coach.
And I don't think people appreciate the fact that them drafting a wide receiver in the first round, like how historically significant that is.
Right.
The last time Bill Belichick drafted a wide receiver was Derek Alexander in 1995 in the first round. I mean, I was there. I was in Cleveland when
and
he
after
drafted.
The way he played, he said, I'll never do it again.
Him and Antonio Lang were the 2 first-round draft picks, and he didn't draft another wide receiver since. So he is trying to address that. In terms of the left tackle, Dante is going to do a great job. And you've got a guy who's been there for a year. I know he's hurt, but at least he's not truly a rookie. It's different going through all those meetings, experiencing a town.
And I do believe Isaiah is more talented than the tackle who left.
Yeah, he's got a lot of ability.
Yes.
And Trent played significantly better than anticipated. And a lot of that goes to Dante. I do think that the offensive staff is for the most part in place. So the key components are, it's defensively where losing Bill's significant impact on the offense could play a little bit of a role.
All right, Coach, stick around. Coming up, back to the Cowboys. How much pressure is on Dak Prescott this season? We answer that next on First Things First. On Saturday, we got a star-studded MLB doubleheader for you. First, Aaron Judge leading the Yankees against Mookie Betts and the Red Sox. Then you got Mike Trout and the Angels taking on Francisco Lindor and the Indians. It all starts at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Still can't get over watching baseball at 9:30 in the morning. Back here with Coach Mangini, if you lived over there. Without Zeke at training camp, all eyes
Used to it.
are on his quarterback. No, they are. I'm not. Dak Prescott. Dak has high hopes in this, his 4th season. Talked about improving after last season's playoff run. Take a listen.
Each and every year you have confidence. You say this is the year. You say we've got a great team, but you look around this team we have, this roster that we have, the talent, the leaders that we have. It's to win, and it's to win everything. And we've got the people to do it, so it's got to just come in and stay focused and make sure that we're holding each other to those expectations.
The intangibles that he has as a leader, as a guy, I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Everybody respects him. They want to play for him. They listen to him. They believe in him. And then as a player, you know, his confidence in this system and all the little things that he's working on to improve his game, you know, I expect an incredible year for him. He is the leader of this football team.
Coach, we don't often tell you how much of an influence you've had on our show, but there is a concept that you introduced last year that we talk about all the time across multiple sports, and it's the concept of a force multiplier, about someone who makes everyone else around them better. When you look at a quarterback like Dak Prescott and what the Cowboys have, is he a force multiplier for that team?
He's a little bit of a split force multiplier. When you hear Jason Witten talk, and he talks about his intangibles, I believe that. And I've got a lot of people that I know in Dallas who talk about what a good guy is, his work ethic, the poise that he has, the presence that he has in the huddle, all of those things that you look for from a quarterback. And that, to me, is a force multiplying effect. But his play, his actual play, I struggle with. Because when you have to bring in a guy like Amari Cooper and say, okay, now he's got a weapon that he can
or
go
even
to.
as a way to see if he's a great player.
Right, to see how well he can do. And then you've got Ezekiel Elliott and his role and what it was like when he wasn't there and whether or not Dak could carry the team. You just didn't see it. And we just did a segment on Tom Brady and the Patriots, and we never questioned that. So they lose their left tackle. They don't have any wide receivers of significance that on the outside right now. But we all look at it as, okay, Tom will take care of it. But we can't talk about Dak that way. And to me, it's a split deal.
Well, and Chris, you say all the time, and you're right, that right now, this moment, it's the NFL's the deepest it's ever been at talent at the quarterback position because guys are playing longer than we'd ever seen in the past. So guys like Brady and Breeze are still at the top of their game. You have Rivers and Big Ben who are still playing at a Pro Bowl level. And we've also had now a number of draft classes come in of guys who are either in the heart of their prime, like Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, or young guys who are starting to approach their prime.
Mahomes in that crew.
Mahomes, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, if you like him. Baker, I think, is going to be in that group. And that's where Dak's in such a tough spot. There was not that long ago era where Dak, this level of player, would have been in the discussion as a top 10 quarterback in football. But no chance right now. There's no argument to be made. It's hard to fit Matt Ryan, who's won a league MVP, in that top 10. Cam Newton won a league MVP, and nobody, hardly outside of Carolina, has him in that top 10. And so for Dak, when he has had, for the vast majority of his career, the ideal situation, aside from the receivers, he's had a great offensive line in front of him, even if it didn't play up to its standard last year. And the guy that we've said is maybe the best running back in the NFL behind him for the entirety of his career, except for the 6-game suspension. When you've had that setup and at the very least a good, and last year a very good defense, and we're still questioning, but can he make the big throws? Can he turn 3s into 7s in the red zone? That is an indictment on him. Now, the Cowboys, because of his availability and his leadership that you're talking about, they're going to pay him like they know he's a force multiplier. But once they do that, then they are not going to be able to have as much talent around him because it's a hard cap sport. And then he is going to have to show that he is the best version of himself because pretty soon he's going to be on a team without as much talent because when we talk about that pie, instead of eating up a tiny sliver, he's going to eat up the biggest chunk of anyone on the team.
Dak Prescott cannot carry the Dallas Cowboys to a Super Bowl. But there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league that can't carry their team to the Super Bowl. Now, a lot of those guys aren't playing in a city that's going to generate the type of optics. They're not going to be on TV shows like this because they're not on teams like the Cowboys. So can Dak handle that pressure? Dan Marino taught me this. He said, Chris, if they take away my running game, what am I going to do? He said, I'm going to pick a guy, let it fly. Super Bowl, we ain't going unless Dan Marino is throwing. And Dak, that's not the case. We got 3 years of NFL defenses saying what they think of the Dallas Cowboys. Forget what Chris says. What do the defenses say? How many guys at the line of scrimmage? 7. That means they're trying to stop someone who's in the box. And if the quarterback, if they're not blitzing them, it's about stopping a running back. So when I watch the Dallas Cowboys, every team they play says, we must stop Ezekiel and that offensive line from taking over the game when the defense plays less than 30 minutes, which has to do with those linemen and that running back. They were undefeated last year. So no. The NFL thinks it. Right now, the first game of the season, I can guarantee what they're going to do. That's why they got to get Zeke signed. That's why they got to get Zeke there, because Dak is not that guy. And it's not like you can't have a long career. You can't be successful. You can't win a Super Bowl. But how you're going to have to do it, look at the Rams. If they had a quarterback that was a force multiplier, he could have won that Super Bowl. It was waiting for him to make a play. But could he? No, with Todd Gurley being hurt. Dak and him are in the same classification, and right now Jared Goff is a lot better thrower of the football than Dak. It's pretty simple. He is not a great thrower of the football. And I said this about a quarterback before, and someone got mad about me. If throwing the football is important, which it is right now, the all-time high in the league, Dak Prescott is going to be in the middle of the pack because that's where he is as a thrower.
And to Chris's point, he's not a great runner of the football either. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that can make huge plays with their feet.
We give Dak that courtesy, he's an African-American, he got to be a good athlete. It's like playing pickup basketball. You got to be careful with them guys sitting on the sideline. Be careful who you pick. Right? There's some not good athletes or African-Americans over there. We just grant him that.
Yeah, and we talk about some other guys who just make incredible plays with their feet or can extend the play, which allows guys to get open if the initial play is not there. And he's not really that guy either. He's not really a read option guy. Now, he does do a good job of protecting the football and managing the game, and there's real value in that. And the character, there's real value in that. But in terms of a force multiplier, I always try to think, if I took that player and put him on another team, what kind of impact would he have? have. And I imagine if we took Tom Brady and put him on the Cowboys, he'd have a pretty significant impact. And there's a lot of quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger on the Cowboys would have a significant impact. You know, Aaron Rodgers, even Patrick Mahomes, I think, could have a more significant impact. And if you put Dak in those situations, how good would he be? So that's the equation that I look at, and I just don't see it from him right now.
We keep talking about Ben Simmons and his lack of a jump shot, and we just want him to get in there and practice and shoot 10,000 jump shots and he'll get better. Can the same thing be applied to football? If he's not a good thrower of the football, if he's not a good runner, are those two qualities, are those two fundamentals that he could actually get better at?
Well, I shouldn't say obviously. I mean, I think he is getting better. And it is his job and the coaching staff's job for him to continue. He's still a young player. He's played 3 years in this league, to continue to progress. But that raw talent is, I think, what Cris is talking about, which is even if he gets to his best case scenario, he's never going to be an elite thrower of the football. He's never going to have elite arm strength.
No, there was a reason why he was drafted in the 3rd round. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't height. It wasn't speed. It wasn't lack of playing. It wasn't lack of, we haven't seen him. It wasn't injury. No, that's his talent level. Russell Wilson, they missed on him, and it was a height thing. If Russell Wilson was 6'1", he would have been a 1st-round pick because he has the arm talent. He has all those other things. At a certain point, you run out of talent. You are in the talent business, and you run out. We have more talented throwers. We have a window where our veteran quarterbacks are staying playing, and then now we have all these young throwers. Guys aren't coming out of college with the read option. They are sticking the football. They are running option routes. They're running sophisticated offenses at a younger age, and that's why we've seen these younger generation have instant success at the highest level.
But I do think that he can maximize his ability because of his intangibles, and I think he'll continue to improve because of his work ethic. It's just how high is that ceiling? He'll reach it, but just how high is it?
To me, he reminds me of a player like Phil Simms. Can you win a championship? Yes, but you're going to have to do it the right way. You're going to have a beastly defense. You're going to have some type of running game in the big games. Can he develop where he's a consistent thrower? I do believe that. He can win 1 Super Bowl, but in this era, can he win multiple Super Bowls with Dallas? That might be pushing it.
All right. Coach, thanks so much for hanging today.
Great to see you.
Appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Maybe.
Awesome. Coming up, will we see vintage Todd Gurley this season? That's next on First Things First.
We'll see vintage Coach tomorrow.
Yeah.
Back here, First Things First. We'll get to Todd Gurley in just a second. But first, Detroit, Seattle, and J.P. Crawford with probably the throw of the year.
I think it's the play of the year in Major League Baseball. I mean, he's falling backwards against a guy that can run. To catch him, to get it. I don't know how he made this play, man.
The catch and release out of the glove was spectacular. He's throwing into just no man's land.
It's unbelievable play. Every time I see it, I don't know how he gets it there, that on target with that much velocity.
All right, AAU hoops, Dior Johnson between the legs before throwing the alley-oop to Devontae Cobbs. The dunk even gets LeBron in on the, let's call it an over-the-top reaction.
He lost his shoe. LeBron, man, they're going to kick you out the gym. You got to stay off the court, man. Out in Vegas, watching some young kids play.
Was his son playing in that game?
LeBron's son, Bronny, was playing. So you know LeBron has to join the layup line, show off just a little bit.
Man, you got to stop this, man. You like an old man out there with a do-rag on the court. Come on, man, your son feeling himself. You know all them little 14, 15-year-old girls, maybe 16, 17 for old Bronny. You know they trying to check dude out? LeBron need to be in the car, man. He need to be in the car. Some of them moms is trying to hire little Bronny. What? Hey, little boy.
Okay. You guys want to play a little in or out? Let's just play.
That might be the funniest line you've ever had.
Let me braid your hair. Let me braid your hair. That's one of the real hood lines.
The Rams will be monitoring Todd Gurley's arthritic knee in training camp. This after he rushed for only 45 yards combined in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. See you in or out on Gurley bouncing back, finishing top 5 in rushing this season.
This is close for me. Earlier this morning, it came to me. I'm like, I'm out. But I got to change the pace. Todd Gurley's going to be in the top 5. That's not too difficult for him. I believe they're going to manage his reps, especially early. But, yes, I believe 1,200 yards will get him there and get him in the top 5. So I'm in. Late minute switch, I'm in. I'm in.
If he can get to 1,200, he'll definitely be in there. 1,100 might get you there. Todd Gurley, until he proves otherwise, is no longer in consideration to be the best back in football. He's got to show us that he is the guy that we saw prior to the final.
He was probably in good shape until you named him the best back. Then what happened?
Yeah.
My knee hurt.
It's my fault.
That's
my fault.
Eagles, they done winning. Oh, they end up winning.
Okay. God, the Eagles prediction is a long time ago, man. I've had plenty of other wrong predictions since then. You could have gone from there. I'm in. This is a little bit of a prediction, a little bit of a hope. I like Todd Gurley. I like the way Todd Gurley's conducted his business in college and in the pros. And I don't want to see a guy in his mid-20s have arthritis derail his career. And so I know he suffered a major injury in college that maybe started us down this road, but I'm hoping Todd Gurley, at the very least, can still be a top 5 running back in this league. So I'm in. And the Rams sure as hell better hope he is, because they don't have anything close to a top 5 quarterback in this league.
All right, you're both in on Todd Gurley. Moving on to Aaron Rodgers. He said that his favorite target, Davante Adams, is a top 3 wide out in the NFL. Only Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins have more receiving touchdowns than Adams the last 2 seasons. So, Chris Carter, are you in or out on Adams being the most underrated receiver in the NFL?
Aaron, I'm out, man. Stop. I mean, Tyreek Hill is underrated. Adam Thielen is underrated. I believe Julio Jones is underrated. And also, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones. You think Davante Adams is number 3? No, stop, man. Aaron, I know what you're trying to do, bruh, but no. There's plenty of wide receivers that are more underrated than him.
So I don't think he's top 3 guy, but I actually, once I looked at his numbers, when I saw Aaron say, I'm like, man, how can he even say that? Guy's got 35 touchdowns the last 3 years. I had no idea.
Yeah, I think he's playing with Aaron Rodgers.
I understand. Some of that time, though, Aaron's been out, injured, especially 2 years ago.
He didn't have no touchdowns when Aaron wasn't in there.
He had 0 touchdowns?
Well, just check it out.
Okay.
Just check it out.
All right, regardless, I'm going to be in on this because I don't think he is considered a top 10 receiver by a lot of people, and his numbers say he is. I'm in on Davante Adams being the most underrated guy. He was certainly underrated by me. I had no idea he was averaging 12 touchdowns.
What about DeAndre Hopkins?
I think he just got a 99 on Madden. He's properly rated. You're mentioning all
people don't talk about him as much as they should.
Okay, I think they do. I think people know how good DeAndre is. You're talking about all these great players. Thielen's a good argument.
You almost caused me to do something, but if you ain't have a black eye on your right side,
What are you talking about?
I know if I hit you in the nose, you're going to bleed to death.
Madden was your counter-argument?
Joke.
The Seahawks locked up linebacker Bobby Wagner with a 3-year, $54 million extension. Seattle drafting Wagner in the 2nd round of the 2012 NFL Draft. He's been an important part ever since. So, Nick, you in or out on the Seahawks Super Bowl window still being open after locking up Bobby Wagner?
Jenna, Pete Carroll's still their coach?
Yes.
Russell Wilson still their quarterback?
He is.
Well, then their Super Bowl window's open. Coach, quarterback, lead. You got a top 5 quarterback. You got a top 5 coach. Your Super Bowl window is open. Added bonus, you bring back the best player in your defense, Bobby Wagner. I am absolutely in on Seattle's Super Bowl window being open, especially if the Rams come back to the pack a bit. We know the Cardinals are going to struggle. The Niners aren't close to being good. That division's awful winnable. Get a home playoff game. A little tough. I think I might be convincing Chris Carter a little bit. I'm absolutely in.
Man, you almost got me. You almost. Do I believe Seattle can win 11, 12 games? I don't think so. I don't think their roster top to bottom is talented enough. When Malcolm Butler intercepted that ball, Jenna, he shut the windows right on their fingers. Because since that, they are not Super Bowl contenders. They got a great quarterback in Russell. They will be a potential playoff team. But Super Bowl, no. Bobby Wagner, there's no middle linebacker I think is better than him in the league right now. But no, I got to be out. The Super Bowl window is nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Ezekiel Elliott is still not at Cowboys camp. The team has a balancing act of figuring out who to pay first between Dak and Zeke and even Amari Cooper. See you in or out on Zeke getting paid before Dak?
I'm going to be out because I believe the owner is going to pay him. I would pay Zeke. I would get it done because I believe that can be more disruptive. Dak's going to get a contract. Amari's going to get a contract. So I just believe that the ownership, a lot of times you have to listen to what they're saying. It's not what I would do, but I believe that's what they're going to do.
And it's also not what I would do, but I wouldn't pay Dak at all. Like, I wouldn't pay him this whole year. I'd wait and see.
Right. I think you have a good plan as far as
and hold the franchise tag over him. But they clearly are not going to do that. They are going to pay Dak. And it would set a really uncomfortable precedent if it's like, hey, we're going to pay Dak, we're going to pay Dak, we're going to wait on Zeke. Then Zeke no-shows, and it's like, nope, we'll pay Zeke first. I don't think they're going to do that, even though they should have never been in this position. They should have kept it mum on Dak, paid Amari because you traded for him, paid Zeke because he's great, and tell Dak, you got a best running back, top 5 receiver, you got this great offensive line, go earn your money this season. But that's not what they're going to do. They're going to pay Dak like $31 million a year because they're crazy, and then we'll see if they have money left over for the best player on their team, Zeke.
All right, we end in the NBA today. On Friday, Russell
NBA.
Westbrook was officially introduced as a Rocket. There are questions about how well Russ and Harden will fit together, but the talent is unmatched. These two have combined for 15 All-Star selections. So, Nick, you in or out on Russ and Harden being the best backcourt in the NBA?
Obviously, I'm in. What's the Dame and CJ? Steph and Clay with Clay, no, I'm in. You got 2 MVPs. You got, what'd you say, 15 All-Stars?
That's it.
All these All-NBAs? What's up?
Didn't we do in the NBA Finals a list of the best backcourts all time? Was not Clay and Steph on there?
They were.
Where were they at on the list?
I don't quite remember. They were very high on the list.
I mean...
Yeah, maybe the best backcourt ever.
Yeah, so now they went from the best backcourt ever. You know people watch these shows and they play them back.
Yeah, I understand. But that was when Clay had an intact ACL. You don't have an intact ACL this year. And this backcourt didn't exist yet. How about that? Threw a little curveball at you. Couldn't rank this backcourt there because they didn't exist yet. Now they exist. And Clay had both knees intact. I'm just
going to tell you, just like I told your wife. If you're going to be married to Nick Wright, you might as well sign up for some marriage counseling because he's crazy. These two guys together, you better get some marriage counseling.
When did you tell my wife that?
Just relax. We talk.
Before you got married.
We talk, man.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.